Herzlich willkommen zu GermanStudios. Ich bin Timo, ich bin dein Host und ich freue mich sehr, dass du bei diesem Podcast dabei bist. In diesem Podcast geht es um das Thema Deutsch lernen und alle anderen Themen, die damit verbunden sind. Ich wünsche dir viel Spaß bei dieser Folge und enjoy it!
Hello everybody, welcome back to GermanStudios. Here's Timo, your host, the main teacher and owner of GermanStudios, and today I have an absolutely amazing podcast topic for you, because today I will start to explain you the past in German. So this little podcast will be a little bit bigger and a little bit longer, but I will also split this in two parts, so feel free to listen also to the second part, which will come next week. So guys, let's start. In Deutsch, in German, haben wir das Partizip 2 Perfekt. So in German we have the Partizip 2 Perfekt. This is one of our two past versions, and this is the most common one which we are using actually in our daily routine, in our daily speaking, in normal writing, and in our all day long. This kind of past version is a little bit similar from the name, like the past perfect in English, but unfortunately they don't have the same meaning, but we get later again to this point. So there are actually like two past versions, like I mentioned already in German. The first one is the Partizip 2, or we also call it like perfect, and the other one is being called Präteritum. To the Präteritum, I will do a totally different podcast episode, because this is also like a quite big topic and I would like to present a few more topics before, but today it's just about the Partizip 2 Perfekt, and I would say we start. So for creating the Partizip 2 Perfekt, for creating the past, for creating a past sentence in German, what do we need? The Partizip 2 Perfekt, or let's say we just from now onwards just say always perfect. So the perfect consists out of two things. We actually have a support verb. This support verb is on the second position. By the way, every German sentence, every normal regular German sentence has always the verb on the second position. That's very important. And this support verb have to stand, as I said, on the second position, and is actually a little bit more for the grammar and is a kind of sign for, hey, you're using this support verb, then we speak about the past. And we have another verb. This is the main verb, so the main verb for the context, which actually really bring the content into the sentence, and this verb will stand at the end. Let's go a little bit more in detail. So I spoke about support verb. What kind of support verb we have? As I mentioned, we have two different type of support verbs. The first one is haben, so to have, which is actually valid for 85% of all the verbs we have in German. And the other one is sein, which is to be. This is just for 15% of all the verbs in the past being used. So as I mentioned, haben we are using always as a support verb for almost 85% of all the verbs in German. And sein, to be, we are using for 50% of all the verbs in German. I will tell you in a second when we use haben, when we use sein, to make it a little bit easier. But because of the fact that haben and sein are our verbs which are standing on the second position in the sentence, they are also getting the conjugation. This means we need to do the conjugation of haben and sein, of to have and to be. Let's start with haben. So haben has been written H-A-B-E-N, and I start the conjugation. Ich habe, so it's H-A-B-E. Du hast, H-A-S-T. Sie es hat, H-A-T. Wir haben, H-A-B-E-N, ihr habt, H-A-B-T, und sie haben, H-A-B-E-N. Same like wir, by the way. So let's jump to sein, to be. So ich bin, B-I-N, du bist, B-I-S-T, sie es ist, this is I-S-T, wir sind, S-I-N-D, ihr seid, S-I-I-D, and sie sind, S-I-N-D, again, same like wir. By the way, for all of the verbs in German, doesn't matter if it's a regular one or an irregular one, the wir conjugation and the sie conjugation is always the same. A little bit kind of, let's say, hidden tip advice in between. So now we conquered already the conjugation, haben and sein. And I mentioned already that we are using haben for 85% of all the verbs in the past, so in the perfect, and sein only for 15%. How I can know, or how do you know when you use haben, when you use sein? Let's make it very, very easy. whenever the verb which you would like to put into the past, let's say to go, went, if this is a movement verb. So what is a movement verb? A movement verb would be, for example, to go, to drive, to run, to swim, to jump, to fly. So gehen, fahren, laufen, springen, schwimmen, fliegen. If we would like to use these verbs and would like to put them into the past, then we always have our support verb to be, so sein. If you don't have one of these verbs, so you don't have a movement verb, you just have like an activity verb. I always call it activity verb, so just the normal verbs actually. Like essen, like kaufen, so to eat, to buy, like sehen, to see, like lieben, like to love, like leben, to live, and so on, so on. So all of the other verbs, we are always using haben as a support verb. So let's do a little example so that you know actually a little bit better about what Timo is actually speaking here about. So let's do the sentence, ich esse ein Eis. So I eat ice cream. That's a Präsens sentence. Präsens, by the way, mean right now. So it's a right now sentence. It's not in the past. Let's switch this sentence into the past. What do we have to know first? The first thing what we have to know is what is actually the past of essen itself. So what is actually the past of essen itself? And this is what we always have to learn. And essen is gegessen. So the past of essen is gegessen. And because essen, to eat, is not a movement verb, of course not, it's a normal verb, so a normal activity verb, our support verb will be haben. And I mentioned already that essen in the past is gegessen, and a couple of minutes before I said that the past verb, which is for the content and the context, you can say both here, is at the end of the sentence. So gegessen will stand at the end of the sentence. It's the last word. It's the last word, I repeat myself, in the sentence. And haben, with the right conjugation, of course, depending on the subject. By the way, the subject is always the main actor in the sentence. The person, the thing, the animal who is doing the activity will always be on the second position. And I give you some example sentences so that you can follow and you can see what I mean. Ich habe ein Eis gegessen. Du hast ein Eis gegessen. Er hat ein Eis gegessen. Wir haben ein Eis gegessen. Ihr habt ein Eis gegessen. Sie haben ein Eis gegessen. So you can see that gegessen is always at the end. And just haben on the second position gets the different conjugation. Ich habe, du hast, er hat, wir haben, ihr habt, sie haben. And gegessen is at the end. This is how we are doing the past. So I give you, of course, more examples because we cannot learn the past just with one example. This would be a little bit boring and I would like to keep entertaining you. So let's go to the next verb, which probably most of you already know. This is kaufen. Kaufen, for everybody who don't know, this means to buy. And the past of kaufen, which we have to learn, is gekauft. So, and if I compare gegessen and gekauft, one thing you can recognize that most of the verbs, and we can really speak about, again, 85 or even 90% of all of the verbs in the past, so in the perfect past, not in the Präteritum. As I said, this comes a little bit later. In the perfect, will always start with the GE. And, very interesting fact, either the verbs are ending on en or they're ending on t. So, but keep going. We have kaufen and the past is gekauft. So kaufen means to buy. It's not a movement verb. Yeah, of course not. So then our support verb is again, yes, haben. So haben will be our support verb and gekauft, that's the past verb of kaufen, or that's the past of kaufen actually, goes at the end. So, ich habe einen Tisch gekauft. So I bought a table. Du hast einen Tisch gekauft. Er hat einen Tisch gekauft. Wir haben einen Tisch gekauft. Ihr habt einen Tisch gekauft. Sie haben einen Tisch gekauft. So you see again, haben is on the second position and gekauft is at the end. It's the last word in the sentence. Perfect. So I did already 2 examples for haben. Let's switch to the sentence where we are using sein. So when we speak about movement verbs. But before we do this, I also would like to show you how a question actually would look like. Like in English, did you bought the table? Would be in German, hast du einen Tisch gekauft? So one more time. Hast du einen Tisch gekauft? That's a question. Let's compare this with a normal sentence. Du hast einen Tisch gekauft. So you bought a table. Hast du einen Tisch gekauft? Did you bought a table? What happened here is that actually the subject, which is du, so the main actor in the sentence, and the verb are switching the position. This is how we are doing questions in German. So regular questions, not like questions with a W, like wer, wie, wo, was. This kind of words I don't mean. I just mean the normal questions where you put the verb on the first position. By the way, almost same like in English. So hast will be then on the position 1, du is on the position 2, and the rest is the same. The verb kaufen, in this case gekauft, so the perfect version, so the past version, still stands at the end. So there's no difference. So the Partizip 2 perfect version of the verb is always at the end. Doesn't matter if it's a sentence or if it's just a normal question, let's say like this. Okay, and then I have a little, let's say, extra information before we jump to the sein examples with the to be, with the movement verbs. You recognize that I said that all of the verbs in Partizip 2 perfect, so in the past, are ending on T or en. How do I know this? And guys, I give you a kind of, let's say, hidden information which you normally don't find in some books. And this is always what I try to do in my podcast, so that I share informations which you normally barely can find, but which will make your life so much easier. And I know how hard it is to learn German, and my goal is just to make German a little bit easier and accessible to you. And this is also what I'm doing in my courses. I always try to find explanations and ways to make German much more accessible, and my students are so happy about this, because I somehow make it possible to create a different reputation of German, because German, I think, in general has the reputation that it's very hard and difficult to learn, but I always try to make it much easier with this kind of, let's say, hidden explanations or specific strategies and so on. So whenever you feel like, oh my god, German is too hard for me, just please, I recommend, please come to me and I will try to convince you, or let's say I will try to show you, it sounds a little bit arrogant, but I will try to show you that it's much easier than you actually thought, or maybe based on your experiences. So, as I said, if the verb has a T at the end, like gekauft, then we always speak about regular verbs. So if we do the conjugation of kaufen, we would have ich kaufe, du kaufst, er kauft, wir kaufen, ihr kauft, sie kaufen. So you see, there is actually no irregular stuff. It's just absolutely regular verb. But if we speak about essen, and if we make the conjugation of essen, then we can see that here we have an irregular part inside. Ich esse, du isst. So from esse, ich esse, we are switching to du isst, isst, and er sie es isst, isst. And this is what I mean. If the verb is irregular, the Partizip 2/perfect ending of the verb, so the past version of the verb, gegessen, will have the en. This rule is 90% valid for all of the verbs. Yes, unfortunately, we have sometimes exceptions, but of course, in the future, I will also show you these exceptions. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go finally to the movement part. Let's make a sentence like ich fahre nach Berlin in the past. So I'm driving, or I literally actually is like I drive to Berlin, because I am driving. We don't have it like this in English. In English we have it, in German we don't have it. So ich fahre nach Berlin, let's make this into the past. Because fahren is a movement verb, guys, we don't use anymore haben as our support verb. We are using sein, so to be. But the structure is the same. So sein is on the second position and gets a conjugation. Like ich bin, du bist, er ist, wir sind, ihr seid, sie sind. And then nach Berlin gefahren, nach Berlin gefahren, nach Berlin gefahren, and so on. So all of the sentences are actually the same, because gefahren is the past version of fahren. Fahren, gefahren. Gefahren will stand at the end, and to be is on the second position. So ich bin nach Berlin gefahren, du bist nach Berlin gefahren, er ist nach Berlin gefahren, wir sind nach Berlin gefahren, ihr seid nach Berlin gefahren, sie sind nach Berlin gefahren. Yeah, so you can see that gefahren is always at the end. And if we connect the rule, which I said it 2 seconds ago, that all of the verbs which are having an en at the end in the past are irregular verbs, let's do quick the normal conjugation of fahren. So it would be ich fahre, here it's regular, but du fährst, so an umlaut is appearing, and er fährt, there's also an umlaut appearing. So this is actually like the proof of my rule before, because this is an irregular verb, because in the du and in the er, sie, es version, there is a little change, so out of the a gets an umlaut, so the umlaut appears, and this is an irregular verb, and that's the reason why it's gefahren and not gefahrt. If everything would be regular, the verb would be gefahrt, but it's not. The du and er, sie, es is irregular, therefore the verb is gefahren. Yeah, let's do a second example. Laufen, gelaufen. Laufen means to run, and gelaufen is the past of to run, of laufen. And because it's a movement verb, already the translation is showing that it's a movement verb, we again use our support verb to be, so sein. Ich bin nach Hause gelaufen, du bist nach Hause gelaufen, er ist nach Hause gelaufen, wir sind nach Hause gelaufen, ihr seid nach Hause gelaufen, sie sind nach Hause gelaufen. Yeah, you see again, gelaufen, the past of laufen, is at the end, and our support verb, in this case again to be, because it's a movement verb, is on the second position. And a little tip, a little on top advice for you, most of the movement verbs will have an en at the end. Yeah, this is an extra rule. Sometimes not all the movement verbs are irregular, but a few movement verbs are on top irregular, but anyway, a part of this, most of the movement verbs will have an en at the end, like gefahren, gelaufen, and so on. And I give you a little examples for a few verbs in past, so in the perfect, which are just movement verbs. So, gehen, gegangen, to go. You see again, it's en. Laufen, gelaufen, to run. You see, en. Fahren, gefahren, to drive. It's also en. Reisen, gereist. There's a T. This means to travel. This is an exception that I said most of the movement verbs will have an en. This is an exception that not all of them, but most of them. Kommen, gekommen, to come, again has also en at the end. For example, du bist zum Büro gegangen. Like you went to the office. Ich bin in Kolumbien gelaufen. Like I was running or I ran in Colombia. Ich bin nicht gefahren. I didn't drove. Letztes Jahr sind wir in die USA gereist. Last year we have traveled to the US. Das Fahrrad ist gestern angekommen. The bike arrived yesterday. Yeah, guys, I would say this is actually everything for today. I think this was already quite a lot. And next time I would like to show you a little bit more in detail about the Partizip 2 Perfekt again, because I would like to give a little bit more examples of activity verbs, so like normal verbs, like machen, anrufen, sagen, haben. We have also split verbs in the past, and so on and so on. And of course, I would like to introduce you with a few more movement verbs. By the way, these topics, or like in general, like the past, the future, and all of the different time topics, my students who are in my classes are very trained in this, and they are very good in it because I focus a lot on it. I'm also focusing a lot that you get better in speaking and that you get absolutely confident, because I know how hard it is to start to speak a foreign language, especially if you don't have so much or so often options to speak. And this is what I always create in my classroom, that I create a kind of safe space that everybody feel good and nobody have to be shy. Everybody can just speak. And if you make a mistake, that's great actually, because out of mistakes we learn. Okay, yeah, as I said, next time I will go a little bit more in detail about a few more stuff. So it's definitely worth it. And actually, you have to listen to the second podcast, which comes next Monday. And I'm super looking forward to hear all of you again, or let's say to see all of you as listeners again. And I wish you a lovely week. Ich wünsche eine schöne Woche. And by the way, our new courses started Monday, and we are very happy about all the students who are here. And even today we have Wednesday, so Monday, 3 days ago, the classes started. Even on Wednesday, so after 3 days, the people made a huge improve and a huge jump of their knowledge in German, what is amazing, and I'm super proud of this progress. Cool. One last thing which I would like to recommend you. I'm also having a LinkedIn page, so you just can find me on LinkedIn. Either you go GermanStudios or you find me, Timo Enkirch, my name, on LinkedIn, because I'm always providing some articles. If you would like to read a little bit, feel free to follow me. And also, of course, feel absolutely free to follow me on Instagram. There are more or less regular updates, vocabulary posts, this and that, very important information. Feel free to follow. And of course, if you would like to join the class, the courses, all of the upcoming courses are online. You just can book yourself into it. Or if you need a special support, special request, feel free just to message us. We are also doing exam preparations for TELC and Goethe. We also do individual training, so like one-on-one. We also do like two-on-one, by the way. So if you're, for example, a couple or good friends and you say, hey, we would like to learn German together, but not in single lessons because it's a little bit expensive, what I absolutely can understand. And a course also doesn't suit because it's too often and too many people. Although all of my courses are maximum 8 students, what is a great size, but still it could be too much for some people, then just feel free to message me. We always find a solution, and I'm super looking forward to all of your messages. And please don't forget to follow and to subscribe this podcast. So, vielen lieben Dank. Ich wünsche einen wunderschönen Nachmittag und bis bald.